I wasn't happy being single, but then when I got into relationships or as I was dating, I hated it. I wasn't happy dating either. And so it really got me thinking, like, there has to be something missing. I realized that I actually can have all of those things: love, security, safety, acceptance, belonging. I can have all of that right now. I don't have to have validation from a partner to prove I'm good enough, or I don't have to have my dream job right now to prove I'm successful. We spend a lot of time just hoping that our partner will fulfill all of our needs for us. You know, if I'm so insecure, I need somebody to make me so happy and make me feel loved and wanted. It's not fair to them. I can't keep trying to earn love. It's exhausting, first of all. Your mind is incredible, but if you can just learn to tweak your thoughts a little bit, it's gonna help you feel better. So if you can look at your body and the way your nervous system is reacting to certain things, and if you can learn to kind of regulate that and reprogram it to operate from a place of safety and security, that's getting back to that grounded present place.
So, who am I and what is Turn Outward? My name is Spencer Smalley, and I'm currently completing my master's in social work in order to become a licensed therapist. I've worked in mental health for 3.5 years now, and I see some concerning trends in mental health that I want to speak out against. Number one, I want to normalize being vulnerable in an online world of comparison where we post about our highs and don't talk about our lows. Number two, I want to change the narrative that we need to heal ourselves before we can help other people. Finding connection and purpose in helping others is crucial to our own healing. Number three, I want to share my faith. David Bednar says that the character of Jesus Christ is to turn out when the natural man would turn inward. Me and my guests share stories of how trusting in a higher power has allowed us to love and serve others in deeper and more meaningful ways. I want to build bridges of belief regardless of someone's underlying religious or spiritual background. I hope you'll join me in my journey of trying to help the world turn outward. All right, today we have Ashley Jordan. Ashley, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm super stoked. I think this is going to be a really cool episode. And the reason why I think it's going to be really cool is because Ashley happens to be a dating coach. And the way that I got introduced to Ashley was she actually commented on one of the Turn Outward Instagram posts and said, "Oh, like, this is great, whatever." And I was like, "Well, how about you come on next?"
I
and
love it.
and so here she is. We're filming a little bit late here. So shout out to Ashley for being willing to drive out to Harriman and do this interview a little bit late. But Ashley, I introduce you as a dating coach, but help our audience get to know you as a person. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. So I am a dating coach and a life coach, and I guess like where I'll kind of share is the reason why I became a dating coach is because I always felt like in my adult life that I was never quite fulfilled. I felt like I didn't really have a purpose, and I felt like I bought into all the pressure that we get, especially in the church, of feeling like we need to be married at a certain age or we have to be dating someone, otherwise, like, what's the point? And I kind of got to a point where I realized that, like, I wasn't happy being single. But then when I got into relationships or as I was dating, I hated it. I wasn't happy dating either. And so it really got me thinking, like, there has to be something missing. Like, what am I missing here? And I feel like I got to, like, kind of this breaking point, which I want to share because I feel like a lot of people will relate to this. But I got to a point where a couple of years ago, I was living what I thought was like the dream. Like, I thought I'd kind of figured it out. I was dating somebody who, like, we were in love, we were talking about getting married, we were going to get engaged and all these things, and I had this job that I loved that I felt like was going to lead me to, like, my dream life and financial freedom and, like, all the big things I wanted for my life. And then in just a few weeks, all of it just crumbled. Um this job was not working out the way that it was supposed to. And I was pretty much failing at it. So I felt like a failure. And at the same time, this guy and we broke up almost out of nowhere. And so it was like this whole life I was creating for myself suddenly just like crumbled to pieces, and I didn't know like what to do or where to go from there. And what started to change for me was when I actually reached out to a coach. And we started talking through all the things that I was going through and started realizing these different patterns in my life that were keeping me stuck and keeping me unhappy. And we dove into a lot of like self love and self acceptance and self worth and rediscovering my purpose. And in that journey, I felt like a completely different person. I went from being so miserable, feeling like a failure, feeling like nobody wanted to love me, to in just a few months, feeling on top of the world. Feeling like I had purpose in this life. Being single is actually okay. I actually can do a lot with my life even when I'm single. And feeling so close to God, feeling like He was speaking to me, like pouring revelation and ideas to me all the time. Um, and it was just like so amazing. And I remember in that journey thinking, man, I wish everybody knew what I knew because this is so cool. Like I was literally so excited to wake up every day. Like I'd go to bed and I'd be like, I'm so excited for tomorrow because I get to keep living this amazing, beautiful life. And as I was just thinking about like, how can I help other people like understand why I understand and feel that they can have love even if they're not dating somebody. And that kind of led me to feeling inspired to become a coach and start my coaching business. Um, and to have opportunities like this where I can kind of share my story and learn from others and hopefully inspire others as well. So,
That's so cool, Ashley. Thank you
yeah.
for sharing all that. I specifically wanted to do this episode because this episode is marketed specifically towards people in that young adult age range in their 20s, because I think a lot of us are going through it. I think our generation specifically is going. I mean, every generation is has their challenges, and every person has their unique struggles, right? Um, and I can only speak for where I'm at in life, and so most of what I see is people that are around my same age. Um, and I think one thing that the majority of us in our 20s are struggling with is balancing finding out who they are as people, but also feeling like they want to be in relationships, but don't at the same time. And it's like they're being told from society that they should be falling in love, getting married, starting families, having kids, and being stable, like clear cut careers.
Yeah.
Um, and for a lot of us, we work towards that ideal. And then suddenly, when it doesn't work out, when that ideal isn't achieved, we feel like we're left behind in society, feel like we don't really have this place to fit. Like, if I don't have a partner and everyone else does, and it feels like everyone else is falling in love, I go on Instagram, everyone's getting engaged,
Mm-hmm.
all these different things. Like, I feel like I don't fit in, right? And part of that is, you know, church culture. Part of that's, Utah culture where people get married, especially young. Like maybe I've had people that have moved outside of Utah and they said, oh, like it's so nice. Like you don't feel as much pressure to be single um, and all these things. But I think a lot of us are kind of struggling with like wanting to date, but also like not really knowing how to navigate that world. And I've talked about this a lot on my previous episodes and kind of what my dating journey has looked like. Um, and so, Ashley, what are like some specific things you would say to someone who has tried and tried and tried to quote unquote find the right person, and it doesn't seem to be working out, and they feel like everyone else is, and they feel kind of like, well, what's wrong with me, sort of thing. What am I not doing? What am I not doing enough of, sort of thing. What would you say to the person?
Yeah. Um this is the struggle. The struggle is real here. Um First of all, it is like important to recognize that like being at this age and being in this stage of life is just tricky. It just is. We are navigating so much, we're learning so much, we're trying to figure out who we are, what we want to do with our lives, who we want to marry. It's a lot of big decisions and a lot of big things we're trying to navigate. And so, number one, like it's actually okay to just kind of accept like, yeah, this season of life can be very discouraging sometimes. And I just feel like, at least for me, I spent a lot of my time beating myself up because dating was so discouraging. And, just kind of like you were saying, we compare ourselves with, everyone else, like, oh, everyone else has this. Like, why can't I have that? Um, and so I think there is a layer where it's just like there's a layer of acceptance that needs to happen. It's okay to feel sad about it. It's difficult. But at the same time, I feel like for a lot of us, I would get curious about why you think you want what you want. Like, why do you think you want a partner so bad? Why do you want to know your career right now so bad? And most of the time, we're seeking some sense of security, acceptance, love, something like that. And kind of what, like, the theme of my healing journey was that I realized that I actually can have all of those things: love, security, safety, acceptance, belonging. I can have all of that right now. Like, I don't have to have validation from a partner to prove that, like, I'm good enough. Or I don't have to have, like, my dream job right now to prove that, like, I'm successful. And a lot of people get that backwards, right? They're like, oh, once I have this, then I'll feel this way. And I feel like we need to kind of sit back and remember that when you, like, the second you are present with yourself and the second you remember who made you and why you're here on this earth, all of that doesn't seem as important anymore. And like, it is important. God wants us to be married, right? He wants us to find an eternal companion. He wants us to do things in this life that feel, fun and fulfilling and purpose filled. But at the same time, like, we can already have love and security and safety because of our God who made us and who always loves us wholly, no matter what our external circumstances look like.
No, I love that you explained asking yourself why you want certain things in life. I think so often we just want those things and we don't ask those why questions, and a lot of the why behind it is because of social reasons. If you look at it
Yeah.
through a lens of social psychology, especially here in Utah, this is for the listeners here in Utah that feel like all their friends are getting married, all their friends are having kids, everyone's kind of moving on and they feel left behind. They're going to those family reunions and they're the only single adult there. It's just a bunch of kids and then married couples, right? You're that one person, right? I feel you,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Um, but a lot of that why ends up being because everyone else is doing it, and like I feel like I don't fit in, or maybe the perception is that all the normal, well-adjusted, attractive people get married, and if I'm still single, then that means that I'm not those things, or people perceive that I'm not those things, or people are going to be asking themselves, well, what's wrong with them? Like, how come they're still single? They must have some red flag that we don't know about,
Right.
right? And it's the social pressure, it's the perception that we think other people have about it, right? And if I'm still single, like what does that mean for me? How do other people see me? Um, yeah, I think beginning to realize the answers to those whys is that first step. Um,
Can I add something to this?
oh,
This is
please.
a slightly different direction, but um I just have to be so real with some people right now. Sometimes, um, when you're looking around and you're like, oh my gosh, why can't I just even find someone who kind of likes me? Or like, why can't I even get asked out on a date? I will say sometimes it's important to look and get real with yourself and go, okay, am I actually taking action? Am I actually doing the things that would allow me to attract the kind of partner I want? Um, because and some people this is really hard because I'm basically asking you to look for your weaknesses for a second because if you can realize have self-awareness around your weaknesses and your patterns that you're creating in your dating life, in your single life, wherever, that's when you can start to heal through them. And that's something that honestly I had to do. Like I had to look and I had to be real and I had to go, "Oh my gosh, I'm the problem. It's me." Right? And not to say that
Shout out
like
Taylor Swift.
and not to say that like, we're all horrible and we suck at everything, but like sometimes you do have to go, okay, like where are the patterns that I'm seeing and what can I do? What's in my control to fix this and to change this and to show up better and to start becoming the kind of person that I would want to marry. And then again, that goes back to kind of my original answer is the the answer and the way to do that, and this is going to sound vague, but is to remember that you are loved no matter what. And if God loves me, then he sees all this potential in me and I can change because of him, because of the atonement. I can change, I can break my old patterns, I can become who I'm meant to be, which will then therefore help you, first of all, love and enjoy your single life and find joy in it, and then also attract better people who are godly partners.
Yeah. I think what I would add to that is I I think we get in that pattern of, okay, this didn't work out again, or I got rejected again, I got friend zoned, ghosted, or broken up with again. It's time to look at myself, look in the mirror, see what can I change, right? And I think that's a very healthy perspective, like for sure. Go ahead and do that, right? But then the challenge and the difficulty becomes when we project that onto God and then we say, this was meant to happen, this was supposed to happen, because this is how God is going to change me and refine my character and humble me and teach me because I'm still too prideful or I still have this character defect. And when it continues to happen again and again and again, I think we start to like beat ourselves up and like, wow, I guess I still am not good enough in some way. I guess God is still needing to teach me things. I guess he's still needing to refine my character because I'm just so prideful or so bad in some way that I needed like heartbreak after heartbreak in order to teach me that. And the the mental reframing that's helped me a lot is thinking like it's not necessarily like meant to be or supposed to happen. It's not that this person was supposed to come into your life and have all these qualities that you really liked and you're supposed to get really excited about it and then get let down so that you could learn something from it. It's not like that was predestined to happen. Like some things just happen because people make choices, right? Maybe that person just rejected you because that was their choice to do so, and God can't control what their choice is. Like maybe he can, piece some things together. He can bring people into your life, but then, they choose whether or not to stay in your life. And um but whatever happens, whether it ends up becoming a relationship or whether that it ends up not working out or whatever, like the outcome isn't important. It's the response, right? It's how you respond to it then, right? Because it's not that, oh, you got rejected therefore you need to change. Because even if that person was like, yep, let's do this, let's start dating, you still need to change. You
Yeah.
still need to grow, you still
Yes.
need to progress. Because I
Always.
think my mindset is sometimes when I start seeing someone or I start doing things, it's like, okay, now I can chill, now I can stop the self-improvement.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's like I've been going to the gym, I've been journaling, I've been meditating, I've been doing all this self-improvement, and then you start dating someone and you like let yourself go.
Yeah, you're like, "Oh, it worked. Great. I don't have to worry about this
Yeah.
anymore."
It's like regardless of what happens, that's when the work begins.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's so real. Yeah, I feel like it's good to have this kind of growth mindset in every season of your life because, and kind of back to this point of like, we think that when I have this, then I'll be complete or then I'll be happy, right? It's like you're gonna go about your life, and if you wish for your whole life to be married so you can be finally be happy, you're gonna get married and you're still gonna have some issues, right? There's still gonna be problems you're gonna be facing. And then you're gonna be like, oh, well, like once we like, I don't know, buy a house or like make this much money or figure out this problem, then I'll be fine. I'll be, worry free. And it's just like you could do that for the rest of your life and realize that like it, when are you gonna look and go, can I just be happy right now, no matter what happens? Can I still do the journaling and the meditation and like all those things that I love and going to the gym, taking care of myself just because I'm here for me. I'm on my team. Like I I don't know. I have had this thought lately where it's like you you will get to spend eternity with a companion and that's awesome. But we forget that you also will be spending eternity with yourself. And so if you're not happy with yourself, you're going to be miserable for the rest of eternity. And I don't want that personally. And so I think that's kind of a shift we could all make a little bit is just like, how do I stand with myself? And how am I going to show up for other people because of the way I feel about myself?
How am I going to show up for other people because of the way I feel about myself? That's a bar right there, Ashley. That's a straight bar right there. So cool. I I think getting to a place of I am enough, like I appreciate who I am as a person, can be tricky because we all feel this like needed balance between like I still need to like head in a direction. I still need some sort of goal. I need to be working towards something more in my life. But like how can I also appreciate the moment at the same time? How can I still be grateful for what I have while also wanting more? Right? I
Yes.
think everyone struggles with
That
that.
is
What's
so real.
what's your perspective on that?
Oh no. I was like, hopefully he doesn't ask me about this because I struggle with this.
Okay. That's okay to
But
struggle with it.
I'm happy to, we can talk about it. I'd love to kind of brainstorm here. That is, I feel like one of the most challenging things because I definitely feel that way in every area of my life. Like my least favorite feeling is feeling stuck. And I don't want to feel stuck forever. I want to feel like I'm growing and moving forward and evolving. Um, I I think sometimes we forget that doing the little things and being present and coming back to just like who we are is actually what is moving us forward. And I think sometimes we don't like that answer because you can look at your life and you can be like, "Oh, I'm like trying to have all these good habits. I'm doing all these things every day," but you're not totally seeing maybe results yet. And that's where it's tricky. That's where I really struggle. Is I love to see results, and if I don't see results, I'll just be like, "Oh, none of this is working. I'm going to give up on all of it." But I think that that is part of progression too, is slowing down. And sometimes rest is productive. Sometimes like sitting back and saying no to things is productive and it's helping you become a better person. Um, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I was thinking about a conference talk where he talks about your slope. If you have a desire to be better than you currently are, that in and of itself should be enough. Like the scripture says, Alma says, like, let that desire work in you,
Yeah.
because all you need is that seed. All you need is like to be pointed in the right direction. Like we talk about repentance in terms of turning back to God. All God asks is that we go from like here to here.
Yeah.
Like that's literally, and when we want more, when we desire more, like that's, we're desiring God. Like we're turning our desires towards a higher aim, a higher purpose.
Hmm.
And that turn is all that he expects. Wow, I can't talk. I can't say
It's a
expects.
tough word.
Expects of us. That's all he expects of us, is to look
Yeah.
and live.
Yeah.
And then he comes in with the strength. He comes in with the grace and the power to change us.
Yeah.
Right. And so it really is about like, what are you looking towards? Because it's as simple as like the brass serpent in the wilderness, like look and live. Right. And that doesn't mean you're just like, okay, like I'm laying in bed scrolling on my phone, but Jesus.
Right.
But it's like, I don't know, what are your thoughts and your intentions truly
Yeah.
directed towards? Because I find on those days where I have off days, where I feel down and depressed and it's 11 a.m. and I haven't had a productive day and I'm laying on the couch scrolling or whatever. Um, on those days, it's like, where is my heart? Where is my intention at? I don't think it's in Jesus. I don't think it's like pointed towards Christ. So, okay, what can I do to shift my intention, to shift my motivation? And then I don't have to worry about grinding or like working super hard after that, because that takes care of itself, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, the character of Christ is so paradoxical. It's like you focus on him and it's like he helps you aim towards more, but also appreciate what is. Because when you're scrolling on the couch, like you're not appreciating what you have, or, you know, being productive. You're not being productive or present. You're doing neither.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's like pick one or the other. Either one is good, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I love that. It is so simple. And to return to Christ. I think we make it more complicated than it needs to be sometimes. And as you were saying that, I've had this kind of phrase in my mind, and I don't know, I might be making this up, but I feel like we don't use it a lot in the church. But I hear a lot of other Christian denominations kind of say this phrase, and it's your heart posture. So it's like, where is your heart posture? And I love that because that's what it feels like to me. It feels like where am I turning? And maybe I'm not brave enough or my actions are not quite yet where they need to be, but my desire is there. My heart posture is towards God. And so I feel like even the tiniest little switch of like I do this sometimes where I'm like, oh, like I just messed up or like God is not even gonna love me anymore and like all these things. But it's really so simple as just being like, okay, my heart posture is I still want to follow God. I'm not very good at it. I wander. I love the line in Come Thou Fount, prone to wander. I feel it. That's me. I wander. But if I can look and I can go, my desire is still towards God. I want to follow God and I'm going to try and it's not going to look very good and I will fall and fail. But my heart posture is still there. That is honestly all he asks of us. Like you said, that's what his grace is for. That's where he comes in and finish finishes the rest for us. And that is like so beautiful. I think we forget how good he is. He is actually that good that all you have to do is start with your heart posture and your desire, and that will put you on the path.
No, I love that. Yeah, I think it maybe presence comes first, right? Presence comes before productivity.
Mm.
I
Write
don't
that
know
down.
what
Write that
your
down.
thoughts are on that, but like because in order to understand where your heart is, it takes pausing. It takes like mindfulness and awareness. And you can't do that being like, oh, I've been scrolling on my phone. Now it's time to grind. Now it's time to like get after those 40 emails I meant to send or whatever it may be. Like presence kind of has to come first and like awareness of like, okay, where is my heart right now? What are my
Yeah.
desires? What are my intentions? Oh, it's in myself. It's in self-indulgence. It's in numbing certain things, drowning out thoughts, feelings, emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm doing this. Okay. Well, let's check in and be present. And then as you check in and be present, that gratitude and that wholeness, that oneness naturally shifts you into a place of, okay, now I am enough. I'm here. So what am I going to do to spread this goodness, right? Now that I'm beginning to be filled with this presence, now like I can't just like sit here with that the rest of my life in a cottage in the woods. Like, there's I
Yeah.
need to like give it to other people, right? And
Yeah.
that's where productivity comes in, right?
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. It's interesting. I'm like making this connection of one of the most life-changing skills that I learned through coaching and that I teach my coaching clients. And it's so funny because as you're talking about this, I'm realizing that that's exactly what this tool is. And I'll explain it. But I'm realizing that like what's actually happening is I'm learning to be present with myself because here's the thing that I've learned is that God is always in the present moment. There's always good in the present moment. And so I'll just kind of explain this tool if I can. It's hard to grasp the beauty of it without like doing it, I feel like, but I'm going to explain it anyway and listeners you can try it or hit me up, I'll guide you through it, whatever. But one of the tools that like totally changed my life was this very simple, again, it's always very simple. This very simple tool that I call heart connection. And literally all you do is you pause. And I like to put a hand on my heart. It helps me feel more connected to my spirit self. And I take a few deep breaths and I just ask, like, what does love, like with capital L, what does love have to say about this, about me right now? What would God say if he were sitting here right now? And I pause and I listen. and I listen to my heart. And I know that sounds cheesy or whatever, but when you listen to your heart, the way I see it, that's your spirit self. That's your divine self that God created. And before we came to this earth, that was who you were. That's how you existed first. So that version of you always knows that you're loved, that you're worthy, that you're capable of anything. And so that pause gives me a second to go back to that version of myself. In the self-help world, we call it like your best self, your highest self. But for me, it's your spirit self. It's your divine self. And I listen to the answer, and I often would write it down too, or say it out loud. I speak it over myself. And it's so powerful. And I'm just realizing that it's all connected to these things we've been talking about, because it's not just self-love. It's not just like, asking God, to speak into your life, which it is, but it's also being present. It's finding God in the present moment. It's slowing down. It's breathing. Your breath is so important to come back to. It's like remembering who you actually are.
Oh, it's beautiful. I reminds me of what Daniel was saying about like the vagus nerve, like the connection between the heart and the brain,
Yeah.
um, and allowing those two to be in sync,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because using that mindfulness allows you like your mind to listen to your body. Because so often like the body is trying to send a signal and we're just like pushing it down,
Mm-hmm.
or we're just trying to ignore it. Like, get out of here anxiety, get out of here depression. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need that right now. I'm trying to be productive, or I'm trying to live my life. Like, I'm trying to enjoy this, this date with this person. And you're
Yeah.
like, overthinking everything. Right. And we don't take that time to stop and like listen. Maybe we're afraid of what the answer could be. Right. That's powerful. I love that. And thank you for teaching that tool. Um, I'm, I'm curious as we begin to look inward. Kind of my whole philosophy with Turn Outward has been like, you don't need to focus on yourself first in order to help others. And it kind of almost sounds like we're saying the opposite, of like, oh, you need to like be present and then you can fill in other people's cups. And the way my mind works is like, I don't see that as necessarily a contradiction either. And hopefully this doesn't get too hippie-ish, but I love Carl Jung's idea of like collective consciousness and how each of us are connected, like through the like some sort of shared consciousness, like being, like life is connected through just being and consciousness. And maybe I'm not doing a good job of explaining it, but like in a way, like we're all connected. And so I think when we become connected to ourselves, in a way, we're becoming connected to everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with, doing it first with ourselves. Like, we can seek connection with another human being first and like truly see them and truly connect with them, and then the byproduct of that is truly connecting with ourselves and knowing ourselves. Like, it can work both ways, and that's because like truly all of us are connected in a way that maybe we don't understand, right?
Yeah. No, that's really cool. I totally agree. And it's so funny. I've been thinking about this, um, the concept of turning outward all week, because as I've been just pondering, maybe some things I want to bring up here, but it's funny because I am really big on turning inward first. So this has been like really interesting for me to think about, because I do totally like I understand where you're coming from, where there does need to also be a layer where when we turn outward and we see other people as also children of God who also need help and need love and light in their lives, like that is also part of the healing journey, I think. Um, and I don't know if this totally goes with the same theme of turning outward the way that you've seen it, but this was like kind of another perspective I had on that is I also feel like there's a layer where I can turn outward to God. And that is something that one fills my cup and also helps me show up better for others. Um, and all of that just comes with, you know, kind of the things I've been talking about of just like remembering um, who you were made to be, remembering who God is and that He is all powerful and He's got this all figured out, He's got it all under control. And I feel like there's almost this like triangle of, you know, turning inward, remember like learning, you know, who you are and filling your cup and doing the inner work and that kind of stuff. And then there's turning outward to God and seek and finding the validation from Him rather than other people who are imperfect. And then also serving and loving others and shining your light to others. And I think it all kind of happens all at once sometimes. Sometimes it's in different orders. It's just, yeah, it's interesting as I've been thinking about it. There's like so many different layers to it. And there's not like a right or wrong either, but I do think that we can pull from every side of that triangle.
Yeah. Two thoughts as you were talking, right? So the first is, if we're going to go along with the theory of presence before productivity, that doesn't necessarily only mean being present with yourself. Like, you can choose presence before productivity when you're interacting with a coworker. Right? I was working with a client, and he works on industrial pipe, like gas piping, and so he like makes the valves on these like huge 80-foot, like 100-foot long pipes. And his job can be really stressful. Like, his company puts out a lot of like material. They have a quota to meet, right? And they're very detail oriented. And so his job can be really stressful. And he said, like, what's something I can do in real time other than just breathing? Because everyone just tells me breathing, right? To help me feel less stressed and anxious when things are like hectic at work. And I told him, I said, find a coworker who's also stressed and help them out with what they're doing. And he's like, yeah. And then
That's so
the
good.
next session I had with it, he's like, yeah, I did what you told me to. It totally works. Like, so cool. Like, if
That's
you can
amazing.
extend that presence to another person first, then it's like, it doesn't matter if you're, connecting with yourself or connecting with another person. That presence comes first, and then it allows for that productivity. If you're truly
Yeah.
present with someone, then that allows you to help them, to turn that presence into productivity. And in terms of like turning outward, you can also turn outward with yourself. Because I think turning inward is like gratifying those short term, selfish desires of the flesh, the natural man, like instant gratification. Like, that's turning inward. Whereas if you're turning outward with yourself, you're thinking more long term. You're thinking more of like, what are my actual needs rather than like what I want. And that is selfless.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're being selfish, then you're just like, I want cookie now, right? Kind of like what Elder Bednar was saying,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're able to like truly thinking like, okay, what are my actual needs, and why am I having this urge to fulfill this short-term gratification? What's the actual underlying need behind it,
Mhm.
and how am I going to meet that instead?
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's so important, especially in dating, because I think we spend a lot of time just hoping that our partner will fulfill all of our needs for us, our needs in quotes. When in reality it's not very kind, I guess, to drain somebody else's spirit by needing so much from them because if I'm so insecure, I need somebody to make me so happy and make me feel loved and wanted. That's not fair to them. It's not treating them like a child of God, right? And so I do think there is definitely an importance of um staying present when you're dating with this other person and with yourself. Because one, if you want to actually get to know a person, and one kind of like motto that I love is when you go on a date with somebody, just leave them better than you found them. It doesn't matter if you want to keep dating them or whatever, like, we don't need that pressure. Just leave them better than you found them. And the way to do that is to be present with them and to, show interest and ask them questions. And that is what makes a date more fun anyway, is by talking about each other and, things that are fun for you. Um, and then there's the other side where it's like if I'm truly present with myself, um, and I have these desires poking at me, I have to be careful, like you were saying, which one of these desires is like a natural man desire or like a neediness coming from, if you're familiar with like attachment styles, like is this coming from a wounded place? Or can I get to a place where I'm present enough with myself and with my partner where I can go, okay, I do have some needs as a person and that's okay, but how can I communicate this without draining the other person and with, viewing it from a place of love and just like we want to show up for each other. When you're a partner, you're a team together, and that's really important. But I do think there is a line there that some people don't understand. People don't have the skills or even the awareness around like, okay, what is this the natural man need versus what is a healthy need and a healthy want in a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, we hear this on social media so often of like you need to learn how to meet each other's needs, and it's like it's so demanding.
Yeah.
Like it's so like self-centered. Like this person needs to learn how to meet my needs. Like they need to cater to my needs.
Right.
And it's like if all you do in a relationship is learn to cater to the needs of the other person, just like how I talked about with yourself, you don't just like supply that instant gratification, that short-term satisfaction. Because right, if you're just constantly trying to supply your needs, your partner's needs, you're just feeding them that instant gratification. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I want you to do this for me. I want you to act a certain way. I want you to, do whatever. And you're just instantly meeting those needs. You're supplying that short-term satisfaction. You're not actually meeting what are their long-term needs, like what are their true long-term needs and what's actually in their best interest,
Yeah.
right? And I had a relationship where that's pretty much what I did. Like I had a serious girlfriend, and I would just constantly like, you know, oh, you like these popsicles? Like I saw them at the store. Like I'm going to bring these home and I'm going to watch your reaction as I give you these popsicles, right? Because I'm looking for validation in your reaction, right? And
Mm.
I'm giving you exactly what you want. And you were hoping that I would just know to go grab these popsicles because you said you liked them the other day, right? And then it becomes like this assumptive guessing game of like, hey, I'm dropping hints for this person. I'm hoping they pick up on the hints.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I picked up on the hint. Do you recognize and see and appreciate that I picked up on the hint, right? And it becomes like you're just so
Yeah.
unhealthily codependent. And then if those expectations aren't met in any way, then it's all or nothing. And suddenly one of you is feeling insecure, like, oh, he didn't get the popsicles when you went to the grocery store. Oh, I gave her the popsicles and she just said thanks, but she didn't like really smile or like seem like as happy as I wanted her to seem, you know? It just becomes like, I don't know, so outcome focused.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's super true. I think that is such a relatable story because I think I know I've been there before. I don't know. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but Yeah, again, it's just important to recognize like, okay, because it's good to want to like do something nice for your partner or just like surprise them with something, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, where is the line? Where is the intention actually coming from? Is the intention, just back to that example, is it like, oh, I really feel like, maybe she was having a bad day and I want to cheer her up. And, you do a little heart check in. Am I feeling present with myself? What's something I can do today to like, you know, make someone's day? Oh, maybe I'll go buy those popsicles, right? That's like a little different than being like, my intention was to feel like I'm being an all-star boyfriend by doing these things, right? Trying to fill those little holes again that are not long term, right?
I think that's where like giving without expectation. Me and Brody talked about that right on our interview. Like so often I work with clients and they're like, I just I just want them to be happy. Like why can't I just show up from work and they're just happy to like see me and all these things, or like I do this, I wash the dishes and they're still upset. It's like that's where giving without expectation comes in, because then it's like, well, it sounds like you are basing your worth off of how this other person interacts, or how this other person reacts to you, right? So you do something service oriented towards this other person, and your expectation is they are going to be happy or satisfied with this act. And then if they are not, then either I blame myself, which is internalization, or I blame them, which is externalization. So it's like, oh, I did the dishes for my wife, right? And she's still upset with me. I guess I'm still not enough. Or I did the dishes for my wife and she's still mad at me. Can you believe her? Like
Yeah.
ungrateful, right? And it turns into like one of the two, and it's outcome focused, right? Where it's like, I did the dishes. It's like, how are you? Okay, you're still struggling. Okay. That's okay. Like, come as you are. I don't need you to be happy because of what I do, right? I'd like for you to be happy because I love you and I care about you, but like I'm not gonna try and force you to be happy by doing these charitable acts for you, right? I'm just gonna do them because that's what I do.
Totally. And that's where the true love lies. That's where the, you know, your genuine heart is creating love and a safe place for the relationship. And you know, something I keep thinking about is like in the scenario you gave, it's almost like you're trying to earn love in a way. And I've caught myself in that trap before. Like, I've been so exhausted trying to earn love from somebody else. And that's where all those things, the performing and the trying to do this and that and changing myself to be more likable or whatever it is, like, we have to remember that love is never earned. That's not how it works in God's kingdom. He loves you no matter what. I think people get this mixed up sometimes. Like, yeah, there's commandments and there's covenants that you are expected to keep, but it doesn't change his love for you. If you can only show up 10% today, you're still loved. If you show up 100% and you're serving everyone on the block and you're perfect at ministering and all these things, like, you're still loved. And I think we need to kind of translate that into our earthly relationships with friends, with family, with people you're dating. It's like we can't keep trying to earn love. It's exhausting, first of all. And it's not coming from a heart centered place. It's not coming from that grounded, present space.
Yeah. No, I love that. A comment I shared at Institute a few weeks ago was like, basically no one makes it out of childhood without baggage of some sort, right? No matter how saintly or how well adjusted your parents raised you. And especially people that have attachment issues growing up, maybe their father was cold and distant and emotionless to them. And they all they wanted to hear from their dad was I love you or I'm proud of you or I really like this about you, but they never got that. And so they go throughout their whole lives just trying to prove to themselves that they were enough for their dad, and then they project that onto every single relationship. And then so they just completely base their self-worth and their self-love on how other people treat them and react to them. Maybe if I can get this new partner to love me in the way that I wanted my dad to love me, then I can finally feel healed. I can finally feel whole and enough. And then when that partner forgets about something that was important to me, then that pokes at that original wound that I have for my dad, right?
Yep.
Or when that partner is distant or cold emotionally, or is a little more quiet and reserved, and I again reflect that, completely project that from my dad, right? Because that's exactly what he did,
Yeah.
right? So then we start to like double down and become anxious about it, and then our anxiety pushes them further away, and it becomes this vicious cycle, right? And just learning to like not base our identity or how we feel about ourselves in any external circumstance. Because I think so often we then project those attachment issues onto God.
Mm.
It's like, I can't feel God's love right now. I can't feel the Spirit right now. It must be because I'm not doing enough. Or maybe I'm not enough. Right? Or I'm still single. I must still have some character defect that I need to work on, right? Because if I was enough, then God would be like, here's your spouse. You are
Mm-hmm.
ready. You have
Mm-hmm.
passed, you know?
Right.
And we project those same attachment issues onto God. And it's like, if I can't feel God 100% of the time, if I don't feel close to Him all the time, it's either because I'm not enough or we externalize. We either internalize I'm not enough or externalize, like we get angry at God,
Yeah.
right? And so avoiding both of those things, it's like your relationship with God isn't just built off of emotion, and your relationship with your partner isn't just built off of emotions. It's more than that. It's commitment.
Mm.
And commitment is higher than emotion. It's I promise to do certain things and I'm going to do them regardless of how I feel at any given moment. I'm going to show up and be consistent. And maybe I'm going to fail to be consistent at times. I'm going to have off days, right? Well, how do I reconcile from that? How do I respond? Do I beat myself up and then either internalize or externalize when I have those off days, when I fail to be as committed as I ought to be? No. I just turn, right? I just recommit, right?
Yeah. That's so important. I feel like this idea is like a lost art of committing and realizing that even if you feel different, you still made that promise. And something that God has been teaching me lately is that as I date and, you know, am trying to, build relationships, He's taught me that being in relationship with Him is practice for marriage. Because there are days where I fail at keeping my covenants or keeping the commandments or doing the little things like reading my scriptures. But I still made that choice. I still chose to commit my life to God. And even if I don't feel like it, again, I have to be willing to check in. Where's my heart posture? What's my long term goal? What do I actually want? And I think it goes the same for dating and relationships and marriage. is that when we make that choice and that commitment, what are we going to do when we mess up? Because it's going to happen. It's not an if, it's a when. And I think we can learn that through the way that God works, the way that he runs his kingdom is a kingdom of grace and second, third, millionth chances. Um, so I just think that's been kind of an interesting insight I've been learning from him lately. And I do feel like in this day and age, speaking on our generation, I feel like we're not very good at commitment. I feel like our generation's a little bit lazy. I'm just gonna call us out. um,
Shoot.
I don't know what it is. I feel like people um again they're seeking for this instant gratification, and so when they don't feel good, or when they're like, oh man, being in a relationship is way harder than I thought it would be, or oh, trying to date all these, like trying to meet people and date people is way harder than I thought it would be. I got rejected 30 times today, then they just give up because I don't know, they're feeling all hurt about it. But I think it's an art, it's a practice, it's something we have to relearn. And I think that we can learn that by relying on God and his love and his promises and his consistency, kind of back to like attachment styles. Something that can really help is being with a partner who is consistent and who is secure. And that's who God is. He doesn't give up on you, he shows up for you, no matter how messy you are. And so I think that's just kind of a cool parallel we could kind of rely on.
Yeah, and there's a difference between being forgiving and allowing yourself to be taken advantage of, right? Because I don't know, especially those of us with wounds, like we are used to being victimized and being taken advantage of, right? And so it's like if I'm going to keep forgiving this person and keep giving them second chances, that is allowing myself to be taken advantage of. And I know my worth and I deserve better, right? Okay, like, sure, like there are narcissistic, sadistic partners out there, right? That like can do those sort of things, that can take advantage of you, right? And that's why I think it's so important to like truly be in tune with who you are. Because if you know your heart and where your heart is, again, going back to presence, you understand your worth. You understand, and you're going to be able to discern between, is this a relationship where I can be patient with them, I can give them, another chance and allow them to keep trying, or is this an unhealthy relationship where I can I do deserve better, right? I do deserve that secure attachment, that more covenantal commitment from
Mm-hmm.
someone else, right? Um, yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's huge. It's that discernment is something that also is kind of a lost art. Um, and
Because we all just
and
project, right?
yeah, exactly. It's everything you've been saying. We're just carrying our wounds around and we're creating the life for ourselves that's familiar, even though it might not be what we want. It's familiar because it's all these patterns and all this baggage that feels normal to us. And anything outside of that is gonna feel a little bit uncomfortable, even if it's healthy. And it's funny because when I tell people that I'm a dating coach, I feel like their first impression is like, oh, so like, what should I say to this guy? Or like, oh, how do I like flirt with so and so? Or like, how do I get a date? And like, that stuff is fun to talk about, but the core of like what I do is like coming back to who you are so that you can discern and attract healthier people. So that when you get into those situations where like, you're like, okay, is this a good relationship? Is this just feeding into my core wound, my instant gratification that I'm like so desperately searching for, or is this like is this an actual like healthy, safe, secure relationship where I can grow and I can continue to heal where I've been hurt in the past without, back to things we've been talking about, without um draining them, without like sucking the energy from them, but where we can both kind of build something, um be out of self-awareness, out of saying, okay, yeah, that's where, this is where I hurt, this is my wound, it's not your problem, but this is something that I unfortunately carry with me into relationships, and being able to like talk about that and going, I'm willing to work on this, and if you want to be committed to me, all I ask is that you just show up for me in the best way you can. And I think that's where we can start to create those healthier, committed relationships.
Yeah, literally just show up. Like, it's not your job to be my therapist. It's
Yeah.
not your job to fix me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
literally just your job to be there, just to
Mm-hmm.
show up, just to have presence, right? We
Mm-hmm.
keep going back to that.
Yeah.
Also, as you were talking, one of my favorite quotes on dating is tend to your garden and the butterflies will come.
Mm.
And I think, like, when you're truly tending your garden, again, someone might listen to that and think, okay, well, that's turning inward and focusing on yourself and your needs. It's like, I didn't say, like, you know, it's not tend to your garden so that it looks super pretty and people can admire it. It's
Yeah.
tend to your garden so that the butterflies will come,
Yeah.
right? So it's like thinking, what do the butterflies need? Like, what is it that is going to like provide so that when they come, they have what they need, right? Long-term stuff, like actually important stuff, right? And yeah, that's something I think of a lot.
I do love that. I think that's really good. I think in a way it's like, what can we do to let this relationship flourish, and also at the same time I still am a person and I want to improve and become my best self, and you're still a person and you want to become your best self. And there is kind of a perspective where we go, there's three kind of entities of a relationship, and it's you, your partner, and the relationship, and God. I'll throw that in there for sure, but like there's the relationship, and that is like kind of a whole different thing to navigate. Um, but that's kind of just what I was thinking of, is like, how can we flourish the relationship? How can we have these butterflies, exist with the relationship while also being an individual person with an individual journey as well.
Yeah, I mean, the most common relationship and marriage advice we receive in the church is like, it's like a triangle, right? You've got God at the top of the triangle, then you've got you and your spouse on the other sides of the triangle, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
both go towards God, and as you go towards God, like, you both get closer to each other,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like, I don't know, when there's conflict in a relationship, it's like you're 100% focused on the other person and either what they are or aren't doing, right? Whereas if you shift that perspective to a higher aim, whether that's God or whether that's like, I don't know, the relationship or what, yeah, as you described it, right? It could be God, but if you're not religious, the relationship itself, right? If you shift the focus from them or shift the focus from me to something higher, right? Then suddenly it's not about what they are or aren't doing and what you are or aren't doing, right? It's aimed towards a higher purpose. Like, this is bigger than us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so are we really going to argue about who's doing the dishes?
Yes, that's huge. I love that.
Okay, so I think it's time to talk about what we were talking about before the podcast, because I'm really excited to talk about this.
Okay.
So this is kind of more of a male perspective on dating, right? We've been talking about like relationship dynamics themselves, right? And you mentioned like, okay, what about skills for even like starting to date, these sort of things, right? And so hopefully with this discussion we can start to like, for people that are just trying to even get into dating, it's like, okay, now I've learned how to have a healthy
What
relationship. How
about
do I
me?
even
Yeah.
get that in the first place? Thanks for
Yeah.
talking about that for an hour.
I
Well,
know.
if you're here, now we're going to talk about it. Okay. So the first thing that came to my mind is the difference between being nice and kind, right? We hear from a male perspective, nice guys finish last. And I have definitely felt this frustration in the past of like, I am a nice guy. Like, I am a good guy. I do nice things for people. Like, why is that not recognized? Or even if it is recognized, why are girls like, he's nice, but like, you know, and that can be so frustrating for so many guys. And I think understanding what is niceness and what is kindness is huge. So let's get into that. What's your immediate perspective on that?
Um, I want to pose a question. Do you think if nice guys finish last, do kind guys finish first?
I hope so. I don't know. It depends on like the girl and her attachment style. Like if she's anxiously attached, right, she's more likely to be attracted to an avoidant partner or someone that like mirrors behaviors of her toxic partner, right? Or the bad guy, like the edgy
Yeah.
Zuko type, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I do think that attachment plays a huge role in this because I mean to that point is when you as an individual are not doing like the inner work to find out your patterns and your, relationship wounds, you will continue to attract the bad boy or like the not the toxic people. And it's really frustrating for the healthy people, the healthy guys who are like, I am the best you'll ever have. But girls are very uninterested in that because, and not to say that this is always girls and guys are this way, but it's just for me, I've seen this. But um that is so tricky, and this is where it comes down to like we all have to be willing to do some of the inner work so that we can start to recognize um, who is actually genuinely healthy and a kind person, and come to a point where like, oh, I actually want to attract that kind of person. And I know this is tricky because that's like relying a lot on the girl to shape up so that she'll recognize the good guys. Um, at the same time, a thought that I had, and this is probably not the answer you're looking for, but being the kind guy and genuinely, again, coming from a place of being genuine, like wanting to be your best self, being kind, doing all the right things. Here's the thing is that, and I've caught myself in this trap too, is like there's this narrative that, oh, if you do all the inner work, then you'll attract a healthy person, which is true. However, sometimes you do the inner work and you're working on yourself, you're becoming who you want to be, and even then sometimes you might still be single for a while. And I don't know all the reasons behind that, and I I do believe that um you like I still do believe that you will attract better people into your life by being genuine and like, kind of healing through your attachment wounds. But sometimes God just needs you to be single for a little while longer. Maybe you have more to do as a single at this time in your life than you could when you're married for now. And then the other side of that is maybe the women that, would be a good partner for you, maybe they're still healing too. So we have to remember that like there's so much more going on than just like, oh, I'm doing the things, I'm doing my best, but like the people you're dating, they're trying to heal too, and they're trying to, figure out what they want and what they need and where they can improve. And that takes time and it's like trying to find the ones that are at the same level, you know? It's a little bit trickier to do that, I feel like.
Absolutely, yeah. I remember feeling that way, like when that girl, the popsicle girl that I was talking about, like when that relationship ended, I was like I didn't deserve that. Like I'm this good guy. Like I gave her all these things and I did all these things. I realize now that I was nice, but I don't think I was really kind. And I think the difference between niceness and kindness is like niceness is like putting on a like a cheerful, happy, friendly, kind mask.
Mhm.
And then again, it's like looking towards that external validation of like, I'm going to be nice so I get this out of someone, right? It's inauthentic in a way. It's like expecting some sort of reaction because of your niceness.
Mhm.
Whereas kindness is more about character. Like, is that who you truly are as a person? Because
Mhm.
just because you're cheerful and happy and smiley doesn't necessarily mean that you're kind. And just because you're got this grumpy kind of straight face, like serious look. Like I've met a lot of like guys, like biker dudes that are big long beards, all tatted up. They look pretty rough on the outside, but they're kind, you know. And there's a difference, right? That you can truly be kind because like that's who you are and what you do rather than the mask that you put on and you perform. And I think girls are really good at like knowing the difference. And so like if you feel like you're this really nice guy, like are you using being nice as a means to an end? Like are you using it to get something out of people? Because at the end of the day, like I don't want to put you on blast too much, but that's kind of manipulative, right? Whereas if you're kind, like that's part of your character, like that's who you are and you don't necessarily like smile all the time. You don't necessarily like, you know, but you will always try and genuinely help someone else. And you don't necessarily need recognition for it. You don't necessarily need validation or approval or affirmation from someone else. But you just do it because that's what you do and who you are. That's what genuinely attracts. That's what genuinely comes forth.
Yeah, 1000%. And that is really, really cool because when you are genuinely kind and genuinely being authentic to who you are, it is, it's fulfilling and it's satisfying no matter like whether or not you're in a relationship, right? It gives you purpose in life when you're single. It gives you purpose in life while you're dating, while you're in relationships. Like it just that's going to last through all of the seasons of your life. It's going to be more important through all of those things.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's are you focused on developing character, not to be who someone else wants you to be or to get something that you want, but developing character to truly be like Christ. I don't know, because it's like as you become Christ-like, it's like Christ isn't gonna love you anymore than he already does. Like he's not gonna sacrifice himself for you anymore than he already does. Like he already died for you. He already like suffered the worst suffering imaginable in the history of mankind and all existence for you. So it's like doing anything for him or like becoming better in any sort of way isn't going to change how he reacts to you, isn't going to change anything.
Yeah.
But it is going to increase your ability to feel close to him. And something that I love, that I've learned recently is like shared experiences is like the foundation for any solid relationship. And so when you share any sort of experience on an emotional level with someone, like that builds connection. And as we have experiences with Christ, like it connects us to him, and it also changes us to be more like him. And as we become more like him, it also allows us to experience him more. So it's like this perpetual cycle that keeps on giving, right? It's like we just we get closer to him as we get closer to him, you know.
Yeah.
and and it's the natural consequence of it, and that's what I think. I think we're basically describing the difference between validation and connection, right?
Yeah, I love that. That's a really cool parallel again of just learning relationship with Christ, relationship with God. It's the higher and holier way to have relationships with others.
Awesome. Well, I have a flight that I need to catch fairly soon, so we've got to get it wrapped up. I kind of want to keep going
Yes,
because it's
good
such a
luck.
cool conversation. Um, but I mean, we've talked a lot about relationship dynamics. Now we're talking about how to like genuinely attract as like, you start talking to someone, for someone that's kind of in the early stages and is um trying to improve their ability to connect with people and to develop the very early stages of those relationships. Or maybe there's someone that's listening to this that's like, I feel like I'm pretty good at getting first dates, but I can't really get a second date. Like, what would you say to that person?
Such a good question. I have sort of a complicated answer for that. So,
Go ahead.
I'm like there I yeah. Um Kind of this whole time I've been thinking like it is so simple for us to just sit here and be like, yeah, you just have to like be present, you just have to connect with God more and like all these things, and that's great and dandy and that is powerful. Um but quite honestly, here's my philosophy on this is like we are human, and so we can get so stuck in our mind and we can get so stuck in our body and in our emotions, and our mind and our emotions are going to control and drive our life. And I honestly think that's why people struggle with dating so much. It's why I struggle with dating still. Like it's a constant, like I'm still learning. I'm still um working through these things as I go about my life, but um the first thing I'm going to say is like get a coach, get a therapist. Like I honestly believe in that so much because here's the thing. Um a lot of people have a hard time like feeling the spirit or hearing what God is trying to tell them because they're stuck in like, spiraling in their head. They're like having these anxious thoughts or the worried thoughts, right? Which is super normal, totally fine. Or they're having all these feelings and these emotions coming up about, oh, like, especially when you have attachment wounds, everything about relationships can be so triggering and so like uncomfortable and like poking at all of your wounds. And so we start to react and make decisions based off of our thought patterns or our emotion patterns. And we start to go like, "Oh, I'm feeling so uncomfortable and so scared," and so you run away from something that could have been good. Or, "Oh, I'm having all these anxious thoughts about it. I can't do this anymore." Like I don't know, I just think we all kind of get stuck in our mind or in our body, and the reason why for me coaching and therapy and these kinds of things are so powerful is because what I do is I help people understand their mind and realize that your mind is a gift. It's amazing. Your mind is incredible. But if you can just learn to tweak your thoughts a little bit, it's going to help you feel better. And if you can look at your body, and we do a lot of like nervous system work. So if you can look at your body and the way your nervous system is reacting to certain things, and if you can learn to kind of regulate that and reprogram it to operate from a place of safety and security, that's getting back to that grounded present place. You can do it through your mind, you can do it through your body, you can do it through both at the same time. And then as you do that, all at the same time, you're also connecting with your spirit. I hope this makes sense, but I just feel like they're all interconnected. Your mind, your body, your spirit, they're all interconnected. So if you can learn the skills and have tools to help you um, gain better control over your feelings and your thoughts, it's going to be so much easier to in just a second connect with God. Because so many people are like, oh yeah, I would love to just like take a few deep breaths and ask God, kind of the tool I shared earlier, like, oh, what does God have to say about me or this situation right now? But I'm so anxious and I'm like, but this and this and this, and Satan's voice is here, like, the enemy is like trying to put me down, and like that's super normal. That's a super valid part of life. But if you had the skills and the tools to help you kind of calm those thoughts and just pull them back for just a second, you're going to get so good. What I help my clients do is I help them get so good at connecting with their heart that you could do it in half a second. And now your nervous system is regulated, your mind is more quiet, and you're thinking from your spirit self rather than your anxious self or your natural man self. And so I think that's kind of the overarching theme of how to do all of the things we've talked about today is you got to find a way to get out of your mind and out of your body that's controlling you, and you have to take back control. Your spirit self is way more powerful than your anxious thoughts. Your spirit self is way more powerful than your patterns that are stuck in your nervous system that are trapping you from feeling fully free and safe and loved. And if you can just learn to get back to that spirit self, that place of love, it's always there for you, then that's going to change everything.
Yeah.
That's how you get a second date, everybody.
Okay. Dang, that was good. That was so good, Ashley. I think this episode is so important, and I hope it reaches a lot of people because I think a lot of us are kind of going through it when it comes to dating. And so, if you're listening to this, I hope it helped. I
Yeah.
hope I hope it helps, and I hope not necessarily that because of this episode you get married or get a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever, but that you learn how to truly love and be happy with yourself. Um,
Yeah.
and whatever natural consequence comes with that, come what may, and love it. You know?
Yeah.
Um,
Perfect.
thank you guys for being here. You can follow the podcast on Instagram, Turn Outward Podcast. Follow it on Spotify, Apple Podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and yeah, share it with your friends. We're trying to help it grow and trying to help it reach as many people as possible. So, comment, like, share for the algorithm, and love y'all. Thanks, Turn Outward fam, and Ashley, thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure.